sounds like a lot of the ideas that he put forward are being used, and even some of them are, show signs of them not being used to such a system, or that it's new, right? So like the part where he's talking about how each branch needs to hire additional members from within its own ranks, right, or within its own system, and that there should be no communication between the systems when it comes to appointing new officials. He mentions like this could cost more, and there could be some difficulties through it, and so it's like he's questioning the idea of, we really want to spend 3 times the effort and money having each one appoint officials separately, right? But that's, with some exceptions.
Yeah, so I'm going to
generally
stop you there, and because we're going to really probably do a nice in-depth discussion about it, because the professor is going to be referencing the document, particularly in the upcoming lectures.
Okay.
But right now, if you guys could take out a piece of paper, I'd like you to just do a little free write of just what you remember from the lecture on Tuesday, and just to get ourselves started. So I'll give you guys till 6:06. Oh, and then Amber, you just joined. So I'm having people do a little quick free write about what they remember from Tuesday's lecture.
Yeah, I have a meeting. Thomas and I have a meeting right now, so yeah.
I used to spicy stuff all the time. I hated it. I loved it.
So, Amber, did you hear my instructions?
No, sorry.
Oh,
what
okay.
was it?
Oh,
I was figuring out my head.
So I'm just having people do a little free write about what they remember from Tuesday's lecture. And so just write what you remember, and I'm gonna stretch it to 6:07. So.
Okay.
star dies, well, when it dies, it'll get stuck. So if you pay something, we know all about car problems. And if you ask, and if we have the time, we'll do it. You know, if you don't, then we'll let you know. Like, well, you won't be at the certain time, but what's one of the time will be something too big to stress out. It's just a start. Yeah.
We have 1 minute left.
I was really stressed out at first, and then I was like, it's just a start. I didn't get stressed out.
All right. You can stop writing right now. So today I want to first go over, review the lecture from Tuesday and then go over Federalist 51. But before we start doing that, do any of you have any questions that you want to have addressed before we move on to those things, or how are you guys feeling? Good? Okay, cool. So what was the op-ed cartoon that the professor showed at the beginning of class? You know, he does his little current event with the little cartoon and everything on the projector. Who remembers what that cartoon was?
Wasn't it about how like so it was about how like there's some some cities who are being like the sanctuary for immigrants, right?
For refugees.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about how Donald Trump wants to cut funding from California because we are being like providing sanctuary for the refugee.
There's a walkway.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Does anybody want to help Andrea?
It's against the Constitution to do that as well.
I'm sorry, what was that, Joanna?
That was against the Constitution.
Yeah. And so the cartoon was somebody at a doorstep, and it was sanctuary, and then there was a bomb coming towards them that represented Trump's refugee ban. And so, as Andrea was saying, he was threatening to cut funding to those areas because of the support that they were giving. Does anybody remember what the professor said about police as far as enforcing the refugee ban?
I think the police don't report it. Is that right? And then they provide an attorney to the illegal immigrants.
Yeah, and so, but I want to make a distinction here. So we're talking about refugees who are coming to the U.S. or the people coming here from any of those 6 countries that are predominantly Muslim. These people have documentation. They're not coming here illegally, which is without documentation. And that has to do more so with people coming in through whether it be Mexico, the Philippines, or even some
Check it
Canadians.
out.
And they just cross the border without documentation. And these people are distinct from refugees from Syria and other countries in the Middle East who are fleeing from a place of danger to come to a place of sanctuary. And so, but President Trump sees these people as a possible security threat. And so to deter, and so he wants to cut the funding for these people and the centers that help get them resettled into a safer place. And so, and the legality of the whole situation is in question right now. And that's what we're seeing going on in the courts and in the news. And so we're definitely it'll be interesting to see how it plays out over the next couple weeks, because it really is unconstitutional because it's singling out a certain people based on a characteristic that isn't has an increased correlation, a significant correlation between terrorism and Muslims. And so, yeah. Did I confuse a bit more for people, or did I help? Okay. So yeah, so that was the op-ed cartoon. And so what did we do after that? You guys have your notes out? Did you guys take notes in class?
We talked about just about the sharks, giving the example of what the sharks and what Trump's doing.
And so so can you explain that a bit more? Why was there an example of shark attacks?
It's something that we don't really or shouldn't worry about, or don't really worry about. It's something that we should worry about. It should be like bacteria. Sort of, I think what he was trying to show us is that bacteria is like Trump, where things are changing. We should be worried about what he's doing, rather than sharks who giving the stats that it only happens like twice every so often, shark attacks.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of thinking about it, because I kind of had a different interpretation and everything, but kind of what you're saying does apply, because I saw it more so as in these terrorist attacks are seen very much like the shark attacks. There are these one-off incidents, but when they happen, they make the news and they're really big and everything, and so that's what sticks in our memories as what's being bad. But we have bacteria that's everywhere every day that we'll encounter wherever we go, not just the ocean, and that has a higher likelihood of actually hurting us. But since it's an everyday thing, we kind of push it to the side. And so he's kind of saying that because these terrorist attacks are so publicized and so trumped up, excuse my language, but that's what we become more scared of, when really there are these more homegrown threats that we should be more concerned with. Because statistically, I think he actually said this in his lecture, but statistically, you're more likely to have a terrorist attack from somebody who is from the U.S. rather than somebody coming into the country, going through all the paperwork and all that, than attacking. That only happened really once with 9/11. A lot of the current terrorist attacks are people who have decided that they want to convert to the radical Islam that ISIS and Al Qaeda were propagating, which is so much different than actual Islam. And so, kind of that was the point of the professor, was to say, you know, hey, like, yeah, these things happen and they're really bad, but they rarely do happen. And so Trump's ban on everything is really a measure that goes overboard, and it really isn't focusing on the actual threat here. Also, fun fact, more people are killed by cows a year than sharks.
Cows?
Uh-huh.
Heard that.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually looked it up during the class, and I was gonna share it, but I didn't have, like, there wasn't a moment where I could just interject it. But actually, yeah, more people are killed. Like, I think it's like 22 people a year or so is the average. Cattle work is actually pretty dangerous because these are big animals. I know if anybody's been in front of like a live cow, but those things are huge, and if they give you a good kick, you're gone. Not to mention being trampled. So I'll take my chances with the sharks. Okay, and so after we talked about the shark example, what did we move on to?
I'll be right back.
I think it's immigrants.
Yeah. And so, and we were talking about like kind of rates of immigration, and were there anything really interesting that you found in those kind of slides that he was talking about?
The fact that immigration has actually gone down.
Yeah.
Like for a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no really like what is being publicized about like how immigration, like, you know, immigrants, Mexicans are coming in and they're like taking all jobs and blah blah blah. It's actually like not true.
Yeah, exactly. There's actually more people returning to Mexico than actually coming from Mexico to the U.S.
Mm.
And so that kind of shows, you know, additionally that we had this one incident before the recession and everything, and that was the situation, but it's radically changed, and we need to actually adapt to that.
Mm-hmm.
We just really need better immigration laws and channels. It's just really bad. And it's weird because, like, we're always like, oh, this is something we need to fix, but nothing gets done. I think that was actually a question that Amber had on the Google Drive and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Of like, if this is such a big issue, why isn't anything done about it? And honestly, I think part of it is that it's such a big issue. Is that
It's controversial.
Yeah, it's controversial, and also it's an elephant. It's like trying to eat an elephant. And so I think a lot of people get stuck on, you know, I don't know, like let's say the trunk, and they don't get to the rest of it. And they're and they see it as this huge old thing, but it's something that needs to be broken down and then dealt with. So I think that's kind of one reason. But yeah, okay. So talk about immigration, and then did we go to the
Oh,
insight
I have a
after?
question.
Oh yeah, go for it.
What or not what, sorry. Was there a question thing for today? Because I looked for it and I couldn't find it.
No, I actually didn't put one up
Okay.
on the
I
drive.
was just
so
making
that
sure.
was my mistake. So you guys are all off on the hook for that. So no required question or comment because Vanessa didn't make the doc. So yeah, you're good on that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And so, welcome, Rita. So right now we're reviewing the lecture from Tuesday and everything. And I think after immigration, did we go to the inside after that?
Yeah, we went into the inside.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that was mostly about immigration and kind of what we talked about on Monday about the immigrant stories and everything.
Oh, okay. Oh, Vivian's on her way home. She should be on pretty soon.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And then after the insight, then we started on did we start on another subject like that he wanted to kind of do, but we didn't have time?
We talked
You
a
did
bit
mention that.
about the other article about what does it mean to be an American.
Yeah.
But didn't that connect with the insight? I thought
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, that was more connected to the insight. And then
Oh.
I know we went back to the slides afterwards. I'm trying to remember.
I think he just mentioned it, didn't he? That we were going to talk about something else.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the stories of the one of the readings that we had to do.
Yeah, I think we kind of did that. Yeah. All right. Do you guys have any questions anything else about the lecture that you want to review or clarify, or did it all make sense?
Can you, I know I should have said it when you said it, but can you do about the police thing again? Like in the beginning from the sanctuary cities?
Yeah, okay. So, the police and our county police or state police, they're not, they don't answer to the federal government as far as their hierarchy. They're part of the state government. And so if the state isn't really for the ban and everything, then those policemen will let go refugees that are Muslim and stuff like that because they have no interest in upholding the ban. And also because they're not federal employees, they're not required to. But,
Okay, and this is like at airports or something, or?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But, FBI agent would have to do so because they're a federal agent.
Have to keep them there?
Yeah, they would have to. They would have to follow out with the ban and the detainment, while a state or county policeman would not have to because of who they answer to.
Okay.
That's why, whenever you guys watch, you guys watch, crime shows and everything, and, they're like, oh, and, when, the FBI comes into, Criminal Minds and everything, where, it's an FBI group and stuff, and, they have to come into, these counties and stuff. They're like, oh, you're in our jurisdiction and stuff like that. And so jurisdiction is what they're kind of talking about as far as, if they have authority over it. And so, police have the jurisdiction to be like, yeah, no, we're not going to do this. And that's why you get, kind of that little rivalry between, the state and the federal government and everything. So that kind of just continues with federalism. Do you guys have any other questions? Any other clarifications that we should do?
I read the Federalist 51. I think that's what it's called. Or is it 15? 51?
Yeah, and actually,
I think it's 15.
I wanted to go over that next. Hey, Vivian, could you put in some headphones? Because I'm getting some feedback.
So now, assuming that was my laptop, but let's see if your phones work.
sorry, I missed that. You're coming in kind of crackly.
Okay.
Technology.
Did that happen when I didn't have headphones in?
It
That
wasn't
one
as bad,
time?
but okay, Vivian. And so let's move on to Federalist 51 right now.
Okay.
Let me I just need to manage something real quick. All right, cool. Okay. Share screen, desktop. All right. So, was my edit of it helpful at all for people who started reading?
Where was that at?
Oh,
Was
I
that
have
on-
it on the Google Drive in your guys'
Oh, okay.
folder. And it says Federalist 51 with notes. And mostly it's just kind of underlining and highlighting stuff that I find important, because a lot of it is just repeating what he's saying to actually kind of get his point across. It's like they were paying him per word, essentially, and he's just like, okay, let's just put this, this, and this. Kind of like, the poison for Cusco, Cusco's poisons, to make him the llama, Cusco's, that whole thing. Okay,
Totally not that they were long-winded at all.
Yeah, no, and so let's just kind of go through this and break it down. So first thing that you need to deal with these things is that you actually have to read the title, because it gives you a whole lot of context about what it's supposed to be. So this one is: the structure of government must furnish the proper checks and balances between the different departments, from the New York packet. I think that from the New York packet is not right, but yeah. So can somebody say in your own words what this title means?
Well, that we don't want any of one branch to hold enough power to dominate the other branches or control them.
Yeah, so government has to have checks and balances between the different branches. And so I'm actually going to I'm going to do a little popcorn thing where you each read one of these underlined sections, and then you kind of tell me what you think it means. And if you're not sure, then I want one of you guys to help that person. Make sense? Okay. So Brian, because you're first on my little list right here, can you read the first sentence?
Or just in by sentence? Okay.
The underline.
Or just the underlined stuff?
Yeah, do the two underlined sections in the first paragraph.
Okay. To what expedient, then, shall we finally resort for maintaining in practice the necessary partition of power among the several departments, House, Senate, President, Judiciary, as laid down by the Constitution, such and such, by so contriving the interior structures of the government as that its several constituent parts may, by their mutual relations, be the means of keeping each other in their proper places. And so this is just opening the floor to the subject that he's trying to talk to. It's like, how are we going to take these different branches, these different powers, separate them so that they can work together, but yet can't interfere, or take too much charge of the bulk of the power.
Yeah, and actually work as a way, and work themselves as a way to keep each other in check.
Right.
All right. Joanna, can you read from It is Evident?
Mhm. It is evident that each department should have a will of its own, and consequently should be so constituted that the members of each should have a little agency as possible in the appointment of the members of others. all the appointments for the Supreme Executive, Legislative, and Judiciary Magnus, I don't know how to say that word.
Magistracies, yeah.
Should be drawn from the same fountain of authority, the people, through channels having no communication, whatever with one another.
And you can stop there. So, what do you think they're saying right there?
It just seems like it's breaking it down, just like Brian. I think is that your name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as Brian was saying, just with open court, it's just breaking it down more specifically.
Yeah. And actually, if you don't mind, I think I'll have you read the last underlined section in that paragraph because it complements the first two sentences that you just read.
Okay. Some deviations, therefore, from the principle must be admitted. In the Constitution of the Judiciary Department in particular, it might be inexpedient to insist rigorously of the principle, first because peculiar qualifications being essential in the members, the primary consideration ought to be to select that mode of choice which best secures these qualifications. Secondly, because the permanent tenure by which the appointments are held in that department must soon destroy all sense of dependency on the authority conferring them.
And so the principle that he's talking about here is that all of the appointments should be drawn from the same fountain of authority, the people. And so what is he saying about the judiciary?
Must be expedient. So I'm not really sure. Primary consideration ought to be selected mode of choice. So I'm guessing that they should have like the choice of going first.
So he says that it might be inexpedient. So expedient means fast. So it might not be slow to insist rigorously on the principle of it being drawn from the people. First, because of the peculiar qualifications that are essential for those members. So requirements for a judge are much different than requirements for a representative. And so the people might not be able to help select that. And secondly, because this position is a permanent position, it's a lifetime position for the Supreme Court. And so you have to destroy all sense of dependence on the authority conferred. Like there can't, since they're lifetime appointments, you can't have them be dependent on the person that got them that appointment. Because if they're dependent on that person and are responding to that person, then their judicial decisions will be influenced by what that person or department that put them there wants.
Okay.
So let's say, because as you know, the president appoints, as you might probably don't know this, but the president appoints people to be reviewed by the Senate to be appointed for the Supreme Court. And so it goes through two branches of government. And so this way, that person can't be like, oh, I have to listen to President Trump because he's the person that got me here. Because it's both the Senate and Trump. So that's the point of that sentence. All right. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, cool.
For the most part.
Is there something that, well, let's just keep reading, and when we get to the end, if there's still lots of confusion, we'll go through that. Sound good? Okay. So, Lexi, can you read the next underlined section?
Which one is that one?
The members.
Members of each department should be as little dependent as possible on those of the other for the emoluments salaries annexed to their offices.
Mm-hmm. So
And then
basically,
the
oh,
next
sorry.
section too.
Yeah, continue to the bolded one.
The bolded one? Okay.
Yeah.
The great security against a gradual concentration of the several powers consists in giving to those who administer each department the necessary constitutional means and personal motives to resist encroachments of the others. Ambition must be made to counteract ambition.
So, what do you think? Ignore the first one because that's mostly just saying, each department shouldn't be dependent on the other branches for their salary because that creates problems. So, what do you think this little section is saying?
It's saying that like each branch of government should only have enough powers to do what they're meant to do.
Yeah.
And that they can't like encroach, like they should only have like the constitutional means and they shouldn't let their personal motives encroach on like them doing their job in government basically.
Yeah. But it's also saying that they need to have enough power to counteract the power of other branches to make sure that they don't get too powerful.
So just the term of checks and balances again.
Exactly. Ambition must be made to counteract ambition. So an analogy that the professor likes to use, you'll be hearing it later, is that think of the United States as a hen house, and politicians are foxes, and so we need to have multiple foxes in the hen house so that they're fighting each other over the hens rather than actually going after the hens. That's why if there's only one power, then they're able to eat us alive. But when they have to compete against each other, that's when we benefit. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Cool. All right. Okay, Andrea, can you read from it may be a reflection and down just everything in that paragraph that's underlined and bolded.
Okay. It may be a reflection of human nature that such devices should be necessary to control the abuses of government. But what is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature? If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls of government would be necessary. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself.
Mm-hmm.
So is it saying how like first you have to worry about like structuring the government, and then you can worry about like the possible like corruptions that can go within it?
Yeah, and then create the structures to prevent those corruptions. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just first you have to build the government, and then you have to build it to keep it from taking over and becoming this monster. All right, and so you see how there's like this highlighted footnote right here? That is a reference to the bottom of this article and a note that the professor has made. He says, "We read this paragraph as one of the most well-known and celebrated in the Federalist essays. Madison states that since government will inevitably be composed of flawed men, it is necessary to provide each of them with the ability to protect their own institutions against the lust for power that those who occupy the other branches. So basically what Andrea just said. Alright, now let's back up. Alright. And Rita, can you read from this policy?
The policy of supplying by opposite and rival interests the defect of better motives might be traced through the whole system of human affairs, private as well as public. We see it particularly displayed in all of subordinate distribution of power, where the constant aim is to divide and arrange the several offices in such a manner as that each may be a check on the other, that the private interest of every individual may be sentinel over the public rights. So that it's like keeping each policy in check, and yeah, I don't know.
Does anybody want to help Rita?
What does the word sentinel mean?
Okay. Sentinel means like a watch guard.
Okay.
I think it's saying that like they have to set up government so that it makes it so that the personal like biases and interests of people don't like overwhelm what's good for the public.
Yeah. And so I'm actually gonna go down to the number 2 footnote because the professor also provides a good kind of explanation. And so he says, laissez-faire capitalism is built on the principle that greed of individual and society is kept in check by the greed of others. For example, if a greedy business owner wants to overcharge you for a particular stereo you want to buy, you simply go to another store where another greedy owner is willing to sell you the same stereo for a lower price. And so this is an analogy for what is being done in the government, because you have alternative places to go to because it's a competition between the politicians and the branches. Does that make sense? Okay. I want you guys to stop me if I'm not making sense. All right. So let us move on to, okay, so Amber, can you start from in Republican government?
In Republican government, the legislative authority necessarily predominates. The remedy for this inconveniency is to divide the legislature into different branches, the House and the Senate, and to render them, by different modes of election and different principles of action, as little connected with each other as the nature of their common functions and their common dependence on the society will admit.
And so what do you think that means? I'll stop you there.
Is he talking about just like separating them again so they have their different like parts in our government and how they I don't know, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're doing good. That's exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about the need for bicameralism. You know, the two-humped camel in the legislative. You need the House and the Senate, and so that they become a check and balance for each other. You have to have they have to be have different modes of election right here and different principles of action. That way, they have motivation of competition because they're elected differently and they're allowed to do different things, and so they need one another to work together and get a final product, because you know that a bill needs to pass through the House and the Senate to then go to the president to either he passes it or he vetoes it. We'll go more into bill making and stuff like that when we do the legislative. But basically, he's just saying creating branches within the branch.
Okay.
As a check and balance. Okay, and so, Vivian, I know you're writing, but can you read as the weight?
As the weight of the legislative authority requires that it should be thus divided, the weakness of the executive may require, on the other hand, that it should be fortified. An absolute negative veto on the legislature appears at first view to be the natural defense with which the executive magistrate should be armed.
And then continue.
On extraordinary occasions, it might be perfidiously abused. May not this defect of an absolute negative be supplied by some qualified connection between this weaker department and the weaker branch of the stronger department?
And so, what do you think he's arguing here?
Well, I was thinking that, so on the first part, it's getting in my head, so I need to
just talk through it. We're in the process.
As the way of the, okay, so it could be a weakness that they're so different, I guess, that it could be vetoed. Is that what they're trying to say?
So it's actually he's actually saying that the weakness of the executive branch is why there needs to be a veto, because the legislative is so strong.
Oh, okay.
And then about it being abused, he's like, okay, this might be negative, but it's supplying a qualified connection between the weaker department and the weaker branch. So he's kind of saying, we should give the executive branch this power, so it acts as a check. That makes sense to everyone? Okay. We're almost done. Okay, so Brian, to the several state constitutions.
Okay. To the several state constitutions and to the federal constitution, it'll be found that if the latter does not perfectly correspond with them, the former are infinitely less able to bear such test. In a single republic, a unitary form of government, all of the power surrendered by the people is submitted to the administration of a single government.
And then actually, can you just finish it off?
In the compound Republic of America, federal form, the power surrendered by the people is first divided between two distinct governments, a central and state, and then the portion allotted to each subdivided among distinct and separate departments. Hence, a double security arises to the rights of people. The different governments will control each other at the same time, but each will be controlled by itself. So this is essentially federalism.
And saying that federalism is a check on itself, and it gives us double security. All right, so that is Federalist 51, basically explaining all the different checks and balances that are first within the federal government and then the federal and the state government. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, it is actually 6:50 on the dot. Dang, I thought we were going to go a little over. Does anybody have any questions that they want to address before I let you go, or how are you feeling? Good? You ready to leave? Ready to get dinner? Go sleep? Okay. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, or I'll see you on Monday.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend,
Thanks for the
everybody.
discussion.
Bye. Thank
And
you.
try to get people to sign up. Okay, bye.
Bye.
See ya.